Hello, and welcome to Bold Hearts, a production of the American Heart Association in Central Indiana to highlight the great work being done to help Hoosiers live longer, healthier lives. I'm Annessa Chumbley, and I'm so excited to host this 5-part series where we will dive deeper into how the American Heart Association is impacting people in Indiana. We're going to provide you with tips and takeaways to help you and your loved ones live healthier. This year is the 100th anniversary of the American Heart Association, and you may know them for what they've done on a national and even global scale. So since 1924, the American Heart Association has been a leader in the fight against heart disease and stroke. They funded cutting-edge research and have been a part of discoveries such as new surgical techniques, new medical devices, and life-saving drugs. They've also been on the forefront of health education, helping people learn how to eat a healthier diet, how to exercise more, and how to reduce other risk factors for heart disease and stroke, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, and smoking. They've been a leader in developing the life-saving skill of CPR to save lives of those experiencing sudden cardiac arrest, and they've done so much more over the course of those 100 years. So today, the work of the American Heart Association focuses around 5 pillars. Those are women, addressing community need, ending e-cigarette and tobacco use, controlling blood pressure, and improving nutrition security. So this series will take a closer look at each of those pillars to learn more about what the American Heart Association is doing right here in Central Indiana. Today, we're talking about tobacco and vaping, and I'm so excited to be joined by Blake Hurst and Shawn Bush. Blake is a sophomore in high school and a youth advocate for the Indiana Department of Health, Tobacco Prevention and Cessation VOICE program. The American Heart Association partners with VOICE and other organizations to curb youth tobacco use. Mrs. Bush is the Director of Student Services for the Metropolitan School District of Lawrence Township. Welcome you both to the show. Important information we have to talk about today. So Blake, I want to start with you. Let's first set the stage for a bigger picture. Can you give us an idea of the prevalence of tobacco and vaping use as you kind of see it among your friends and the students there where you go?
Yeah, so at my school and high schools all across America, vaping is extremely prevalent. You walk into a bathroom, you see it. You walk into a locker room, you see it. And so it's really since 2018, when it was declared an epidemic by the general surgeon, it's skyrocketed. Teenagers are using more and more, and hopefully we can find an end.
Yeah, okay, so tell me a little bit about, so you volunteer with VOICE. Now I know that them and the American Heart Association are committed to ending tobacco and vaping. Tell me a little bit more about VOICE and what it is.
VOICE is a program dedicated to, our motto is engage, educate, empower. So our goal is to boost youth, empower them to say no to using these products and instead promote and live healthier, tobacco-free lifestyles.
That's great. I'm so glad that you're motivated to volunteer with them. I see here that in Indiana, tell me if this surprises you, high school tobacco use rate is actually 22.9%. Do you see that rate at your school, do you think?
It's surprising only because you feel as if it would be more almost.
Oh, do you
when
really?
When you walk into bathrooms or you see them often, but it's good to know that the majority of students aren't using, so that's kind of a positive. But just you hear about it so much that it makes you think, surely there are more than that, but
yeah,
those numbers have gone down.
But it's still a shocker.
Right, yeah.
Tell me about the difference between traditional tobacco products and vaping products. Do you see more students vaping than traditional tobacco products?
E-cigarettes are definitely much more predominant, especially among teenagers. You know, brands like Blue and Juul, their products are all over because they're easy to conceal, right? They can make them look like pens, highlighters, chapsticks. So students can take those into class and they can get away with it because...
Wow. I don't have a student in high school yet, so I'm not there yet. So this is a little bit of a shocker to me. You've been, Mrs. Bush, in the school system for a long time. Tell me about the numbers you're seeing in the prevalence.
I would agree. It is certainly a problem, an issue in our schools that our students are grappling with. If I had to make an estimate, I would guess around maybe a third have at least tried vapes. So it is pretty prevalent.
How early?
We see students as young as 3rd and 4th grade even.
Okay, I feel like all through this show, I'm going to have the shocked face. And we should, right? Because these are staggering numbers that thankfully, American Heart Association and then programs like Voice are working to lower. Why do you feel like that's so important? Either one of you.
It's just so dangerous.
Okay.
And what we find is that the kids have no idea of the risk and of the hazard of what they're doing. And you say, how young have we seen it? We have seen instances of students as young as 3rd and 4th grade. Certainly that's not the norm.
Sure.
Middle and high school is where we see it the most, but they're so readily available that you do have kids that are younger who are finding these items in their homes or in the neighborhood, and they're trying it. They're trying it.
Or just from friend to friend. I know there's so much to be said, right, Blake, for peer pressure.
Right, yeah, and even going back to how the ages are just getting lower and lower, we just started a voice program at our middle school because they've been having large amounts of issues with it, and it's getting worse. The intermediate too now is having issues, so I think the numbers are just dwindling down through the ages, and I'm not sure why.
Why, that's right, that's right. So we've got a lot to talk about why, what we can do about it. I'm curious, Blake, what motivated you to jump right in to a program like Voice?
So when I went into high school, I really noticed the toll that the use of e-cigarettes and nicotine products were taking on my peers. I mean, if you look at the statistics, there's a 20% higher increased mental illnesses and anxiety and depression in those who are using nicotine products compared to those who aren't, right? So just showing like my fellow peers and even younger that there are ways to cope with your mental health issues, but these products are only amplifying them.
That's right. Okay. So inspiring. Thank you for that. We have so much more coming up. Great information. I want to follow up on some of that when we come back from the short break. Stay with us because we're going to get more from Blake Hurst and Shawn Bush. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Bold Hearts, one of a 5-part series by the American Heart Association to celebrate its 100th anniversary and help Hoosiers live longer, healthier lives. Today, we're focusing on ending tobacco and vaping, and I'm joined by Blake Hurst and Shawn Bush. Okay, I want to kick it off this time with you, Shawn. From what I understand, the American Heart Association has developed some model policies for school districts to use, and Lawrence Township has adopted most, if not all, of those policies. Tell us about it and how it's going.
Yes, so when we made contact with the American Heart Association, we learned of these model elements for tobacco use policies. And we discovered that our policy was actually pretty close. Like we were pretty closely aligned with what was being recommended.
Okay.
And so we just decided to make some tweaks to it and add what needed to be added in order to meet the guidelines that were being recommended by the American Heart Association.
And what were some of those?
We are a smoke-free campus, a tobacco-free campus.
Well, that's a great starting place.
Yeah, we are a tobacco-free campus. There are measures in place so that if we do encounter students who are using tobacco or vapes or what have you, we are trying to approach that in more of a supportive way rather than in an exclusionary way.
Well, that was my next question is what discipline measures do you take when you catch a student doing that?
So first of all, ideally, if we catch a student vaping, we take the vape. We take the vape and notify the parent. And hopefully that's the end of it. There's a lot of things that are situational, though, and frequently the vape is found as a result of some other incident that has occurred. So oftentimes the vape is a secondary thing, so it really is situational. But if we encounter a student that is vaping, we want to try and support them. Another part of our policy, our guidelines include a prevention liaison that is specifically focused on prevention throughout the district. So we do have that person identified that will step in to support students that need assistance either with just basic education around vaping and the harm that it can cause, or if they're looking for help with cessation, we want to connect them to those services as well.
Well, it sounds like you're giving them every opportunity to succeed. So is the goal, do I have this right, support rather than suspend?
Absolutely.
That's really encouraging to hear, because you never know the reason why, right, Blake?
Right.
Can you tell me some of the activities specifically that you've been involved in with what you do as a youth advocate?
Yes, so we have a lot of community conversation events where we have many different like officers and people in the community gather to kind of just talk about like what's going on in our county or specific area and why, like how we can find a solution to that. And then also social media, of course, that's a big platform. So our school has a page where we kind of promote the healthy lifestyle, tobacco-free lifestyle. And then one major thing, we have State House days. So around March for Voice, we go to the State House and speak with our legislators actually to try to reform bills or kind of give them our input from a student's perspective.
Blake, you're amazing. When I was a sophomore, this is not what I was doing. This is great because it really sets the stage for you being a leader. What can I ask? What would you do if a friend came to you and said, Blake, I know you're involved in this. I'm struggling. I vape all the time. Where would you send them to get started to get help?
Right. So that's exactly, at our school, we say, we're not anti-vapor, we're anti-vape company, right? So I would immediately kind of try to give them help. We have programs that our school has tried to put into place, just kind of let them know like the real consequences from like real stories from real people.
That's very encouraging and accepting, because I can imagine that's a big roadblock if you think you're going to be in big trouble. Speaking of trouble, let's go back to you, Shawn. Let me know how students can get involved to help others, and what do you do when you're a parent and you find this out?
Students can get involved. I think students are there and in the thick of things, so they're just involved by proximity. And I think that's part of the prevalence of kids trying it. It's so available. You know, so many kids have friends that are using vapes, and so they end up trying it too. But kids, Blake referenced earlier, just trying to encourage one another, encourage their peer groups, that if you're struggling or if you're experiencing stress or any kind of trauma, there are healthy ways to cope with that other than resorting to a vape or some other substance to self-medicate.
Well, and as you both mentioned earlier, I think this was a wise observation. It goes hand in hand with mental health. Nothing more important than that, correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so much great information. We've got more to get to, because when we come back, we're gonna have one final break, but when we come back, we're gonna show you some of the vaping devices, the flavors that are out that are specifically appealing to teens and youth. I want you to stay with us, because I think you're gonna love the end of the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Bold Hearts, one of a 5-part series by the American Heart Association to celebrate its 100th anniversary and help Hoosiers live longer, healthier lives. So today we're focusing on ending tobacco and vaping, and we're speaking with Blake Hurst and Shawn Bush. I've learned so much already, but now we want to get into the nitty-gritty. Blake, you're going to walk us through why these products are so appealing to youth. Some of these flavors sound like a candy shop to me. Do I have that right?
You are exactly right.
What are we seeing here?
Right, so let's take a look at these. Blue is a very popular product, and what's this flavor? It's Cherry Crush, right? So we see Cherry Crush, Cotton Candy, all of these enticing flavors. You think, would my grandpa smoke that? I don't think so. I think it's appealing to the younger people. Or grape,
Very true.
Very popular. And then also, if we take a look at these blue products, going back to how I said they look like highlighters and, you know, they kind of try to conceal them. These ones, if you saw this from a distance, you might just think it's a pin, right? It doesn't look...
Yeah, I would have no idea. Easy to conceal in the pocket.
Yes, easy to conceal. So that's where trouble comes in. Students ask, oh, can I go to the bathroom? Well then, you know, they could have
And they
this.
use these in between classes or at sporting events, anything?
Anywhere. I mean, because they are so compact and easy to conceal, you really can take them anywhere.
This sounds like a silly question, but for my generation, does anybody smoke anymore among your peers?
Smoking is not as popular. I mean, I'm sure it still happens, but it's nowhere near the predominance of e-cigarettes.
Now, I know years ago, the American Heart Association had a goal of this generation being tobacco-free, and who knew that vaping was going to be on the rise. And we realized that one of the problems is nicotine. How much nicotine is in one of those?
Oh, goodness. Well, nicotine, so a pod in the average joule is about 20 cigarettes. So if you think
What is Juul? What does that mean?
a joule, a joule is basically like blue. It's a product,
One of
a
those,
brand of
okay.
vape. So the pods have as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes, so we know how addictive that can
Wow.
be. But the thing is with vapes, they think, oh, when you inhale and then blow it out, it's water vapor. We just think, oh, it's just vapor, but it's not.
So students are thinking that it's not as harmful as what they grew up hearing that don't smoke. How long does it take to get through one of those?
One of these, or like, I guess, a pod in a joule. Mm-hmm. I'd say people go through maybe at least, if you're a heavy vape user, yeah, maybe at least 2-3 a day.
Interesting. Kind of staggering, Shawn.
Yes.
So revisit, you said that these kids essentially don't know what they're getting into. What are the dangers?
It's like Blake said, it's like water vapor. So they think it's completely harmless, and it's fruity. It is marketed to them, and it works. It works. It's fruity. It is. It's colorful. It looks completely harmless, and so that's what the kids think.
So give us your eyes. 20 years down the road, where does constant vaping use lead to?
Well, I think that's part of the scariest part, is that it's so relatively new at this level, to the extent that we see students and children vaping. Mm-hmm. I don't think we even know how this is going to impact the health of young people later down the road. I don't even think we know. We know the damage that can be done to lungs and the increase in asthma and other related diseases like that, but I don't even think we know what we're headed for.
Yeah, that's interesting. 1 in 5 students are still using some type of tobacco product, stat I have here. What do you think is the most effective way to reduce that, Shawn?
I would like to think that the most effective way to reduce it is to stop marketing it to kids.
Bingo.
To stop marketing it to young people and making it so enticing for them, and to hold the stores and the places that sell them accountable for that. I think that would be a really good start.
That's right. As a parent, if my kids came home and had one of those in their pocket, what is the first thing I should do? Because I know some of us parent good intentions, but we can go 0 to 60 fast. You know better. What are you doing? What's your friends group doing? Blake, from your seat, what would you say is the best way for a parent to handle that moment?
Right. I would say the first thing you really need to do when you first find out is educate yourself. Because if you don't know and you try to tell them it's wrong, well, if they ask you why, well, why? Mm-hmm. You don't know. You need to know the facts. You need to know why, what it does, the damaging effects to your mental and physical well-being. And I think kind of just educating them on that and showing them real stories, trying to, look on the internet for kind of real stories from real people from a lot of campaigns, that would really help.
Showing them their future, the outcome. So being curious, not furious. That's
Yes.
also what you're kind of getting at. Like you said, we're supportive, we don't suspend. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Anything else you both want to add? This has been so helpful today. Blake, I want to follow up with you because I have another question here for you. There have been a number of campaigns by groups like the American Heart Association to reach youth about the dangers of vaping and smoking. What do you think in your, from your seat? What's the most effective way to do that?
Okay, well, if we think about where can we find teenagers? Where are they always actively on, and that's social media, right?
Yes.
The first thing we go to, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram. I think if you really want someone to, like a teenager to read your message, I think campaigns on the internet, or even just kind of sharing the facts would maybe make them pause and read for a second. And also, I think going back to, I think the biggest, best thing, I keep reiterating this, is real stories, real people, real experiences. Kids don't understand the effects and the consequences until it's put into perspective for them, until it's right in front of them.
That's so true. You know, I can remember being a young person in elementary, junior high, high school, and school would bring in someone who had worked their way out of a drug or smoking addiction. And I sat there listening and thought, I don't want to go down that road. You know, they spoke so eloquently about where that road led. And I think you're right. I think those personal, not just the facts, right? But the personal experiences.
One of the other things that we're doing in Lawrence Township is a vaping prevention program called Catch My Breath. We are presenting that to all of our 5th through 8th grade students, just to help with that education and awareness.
Catch my breath. I like that. Blake, where do you hope to go from here?
Oh, just keep advocating, keep pushing, you know, for bills in the State House that kind of advocate for the youth and incorporate more programs into our schools, into our middle schools, teaching them about the dangerous effects of nicotine use.
Yes. All right, Shawn, anything else to add? You're champing on over there at Lawrence Township, and we're hoping to see those numbers, right, go down in the future.
Right.
And then hopefully mental health go up along with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just continuing to increase education and awareness.
Well, you both had such great ideas, too. I could totally see a team up with the American Heart Association to attack this, because there's nothing more important than youth and the future that they have ahead of them. So thank you both today for this wonderful information. I think we can all agree it was so helpful, and we can't wait to see where your future leads you, Blake. And thank you for all the great things you do for the students in your township.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bush, we appreciate you both. All right, you guys, today's show is one of a 5-part series about how the American Heart Associations work here in Central Indiana. What you can do is scan the QR code on the screen to find the other 4 episodes we did on the association's Midwest Region YouTube page. If you'd like to learn more about what the American Heart Association is doing in Central Indiana to help people live longer, healthier lives, then just visit their website at heart.org/Indianapolis. You can also follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and X, or formerly Twitter, with the handle @AHA Indiana. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great day.